Ever have that big idea that you know that if you could manufacture and sell could make you $1 million? What's up guys, Ian Sandusky from Lakewood Machine and Tool, back here again for Practical Machinist. And today on Machine Shop Talk, we're gonna be talking about developing products for sale. But before we do, make sure you like, subscribe, and turn on notifications below to make sure you never miss a video. Let's get into it. Okay guys, so today on Shop Talk, we're going to be talking about something that many of us job shop owners wish we could do, and that is develop a product to be able to manufacture and sell through our machining businesses. I'm going to preface this conversation with the fact that although over the years at Lakewood we've tried many different things, we have never actually developed a product for sale and stuck with it and had a lot of success with it. So a lot of the conversation information from this talk is going to be from the many incredible men and women I've met out there and had the very good fortune of meeting out there who have done this and been very successful doing it. So this is a bit of third-party information if you want to call it that, but hopefully it's helpful. So today, well I guess yesterday, I was on the Practical Machinist forums and I was going through, as I do, looking through the threads, and one thread came up that caught my interest. It's one that comes up quite a bit. It's a conversation that you see a lot if you hang out on the threads. And that is somebody had developed a product and they're coming on and they're saying, hey, I've made this. Can I sell it? Very common question. The reason why this was a little different is usually you see this kind of question come up from people who are newer in the trade. I think we've all been there when we were an apprentice or starting out in machining. We make one thing that's really cool and everyone's like, oh, I want to buy one of those. So you think, this is it, I can sell 1 million of these. And in reality, the answer to this question usually is, can you sell that one item? Probably. Can you build a business off that? Usually the answer is probably not. Usually when this question comes up, that's kind of the way it breaks down. But the reason this was interesting is the guy who came on and was showing this product and wanted some feedback on it. From what I can tell from previous threads he put up and stuff, he actually is a fairly successful business person. I assume it's a he, I'm pretty sure it's a he. But he had a business that was developing, I believe it was CNC plasma table kits. So he put together the kits for CNC plasma tables and plasma cutters and was selling those. And as far as I could tell, he actually sold that business. And while I don't know the specifics of the deal, I only know what's posted on threads, guys. I haven't talked to this person. But I would be inclined to believe that that deal probably worked out pretty good, just based on some of the other stuff he had put up about that business. I would imagine this is a guy who's pretty successful in business. So he came on and he has this product, and the product is a CNC plasma cut ornament, essentially. And he did what a lot of us do when you've made something you're really proud of, and he put them up online on Facebook and stuff. And it's related to one interest, so he put it up on related Facebook groups, and everyone was saying, oh man, that's awesome, man, how do I buy one of those? Dude, I would totally buy one. So he comes on and he's like, guys, I can make a business out of this. what do you guys think? He thought he could sell them for packs of 3 between, $150 to $300. So let's call it $100 each. The conversation kind of went the way these things tend to go, and people said, oh, well, as soon as China or Asia or whatever gets their hands on that, they're going to be able to make those for $15. Or, hey, listen, that looks like the kind of thing you would buy at the farmer's market for $30 each. You're not going to get $100 and so on and so on and so on. That's kind of the way the conversation went. But the reason I found this interesting was because this is something that I have thought about a lot. A lot of job shop owners, I think, have thought about this a lot, and that is developing products for sale and being able to manufacture and sell your own products versus a job shop like mine where we manufacture parts for other companies. The reason why companies like mine who are job shops tend to be so attracted to this idea is that when you work in a job shop or you own a job shop, you are kind of beholden to other people's business. You know what I mean? We don't make parts to sell to customers, you know, like customers. We make them to sell to other businesses who then sell them to their customer base. So we're kind of beholden to their price points. We're beholden to their timelines. There is an element of a lack of control when you're a job shop. I can't make people order more parts. I have to schedule all my machines around someone else's timeline. That job that I'm doing that for 5 years or whatever could realistically be gone tomorrow if they decide to go to another machine shop. So there is definitely an element of uncertainty that comes with running a job shop. So when people own job shops, and myself included, look at some of these companies that produce parts for sale, it can look really, really attractive. You know, then all of a sudden, I'm scheduling my machines based on how much product I need to make. I am responsible for selling it, so therefore I'm not depending on someone else's sales team to be good at their job. I can make sure my guys are good at their job, and so on and so forth. And there's obviously a lot more that goes into running a product-based business than that. You know, you have to handle the e-commerce, the shipping, you need to sell it, the marketing, all that kind of thing. There's a lot more that goes into it, but that's kind of the reason why I personally think a lot of companies who work as job shops or, you know, secondary manufacturers tend to look at these things with a lot of interest. You know, that's definitely the reason why I've looked at them with interest. So when you're thinking about this, although, as I mentioned earlier, we haven't actually managed to, you know, hit on this with something that we really like or feel strongly enough about to do, there are a few things you should consider when it comes to developing a product to be able to sell. The first thing I would say is the most important, and it's critical in my opinion if you're going to be successful in this, is you have to really, really like and feel passionate about the industry that you're manufacturing these parts for. One of the biggest follies that I see that comes out a lot is that companies identify a product that they can make based on the fact that it's something they can make, or they you know, focus on the fact that there's a lot of money to be made in it versus something they actually know something about. For instance, for this example, we're going to use CNC machined fly fishing reels. These exist. This is a very, very personal story, let's put it that way. So a company goes out and they look and they say, do you know what? We are a job shop or we're a manufacturer. We need to manufacture something for sale. So they look at something like CNC machined fly fishing reels. It's a product category that you could consider a luxury or recreational, you know, brand. So you know, there's a lot of money to be made in it because people like to spend money on things that they have fun with. B, there's not a lot of competition in this space. You know, there's a couple companies that make CNC machined fly fishing reels, you know, out of aluminum or whatever. I assume they're all aluminum. And it's something that isn't the most difficult to do. So it's something that a lot of companies could potentially do. So let's say this company looks at those and says, boom, we're gonna make CNC machined fly fishing reels. The problem is that anybody who maybe is a fly fisherman would know that fly fishing is a bit of an art form. So this company, if no one there is actually into fly fishing, they're gonna go out and they're gonna look at what competitors are making. At best, what they're gonna end up doing is making a fairly decent knockoff of someone else's product. If they're a company with people in it that don't actually use that product, they're not gonna know that, hey, when you're fly fishing, the line tangles like this, so we should be aiming to solve this. Or hey, listen, this is something that people who fly fish really like, so we should be innovating in this space. So instead, what they end up doing is they make a CNC machined fly fishing reel that at best can just be a knockoff, and they're probably gonna compete on price point. They're gonna probably try to undercut somebody. And here's the thing, guys, do you really want to be competing in a space where your main function in that space is to undercut other people? You know, yeah, there's industries that get bloated and, you know, there's room for competition for sure. But at the end of the day, you're not actually trying to be better than anybody. You don't have the knowledge base to be able to innovate in that space. I think a really, really good example of people who do this well, they actually have a tour here on Practical Machinist, and it's Tmr Customs. You should check out their shop tour. We'll link it up here. But they're actually fairly local to us here. And what they do, it's two brothers, Tim and Mike. They have, many employees beyond them, but they're the two guys that that founded it. And they really, really love those crazy rock crawling Jeeps and tour truck Jeeps, you know, the tour truck racing Jeeps. It's something they feel super passionate about. They do it all the time in their own time. So at some point, I don't know their exact story, you can see their shop tour video to get the specifics on it, but they decided to get into the space and started making parts for their own Jeeps. You know, they identified that, hey, listen, when we're out doing this rock crawling course, whatever it may be, we break this one part all the time. We want something that's better than that part and something that suits our needs. So they went out and they started making those parts. You know, it turned out that they did well in that, and then they started selling those parts. And it became kind of a feedback loop where they go out, and since they do these things all the time, they drive their Jeeps, they have friends that do this stuff, they're in the community, so they know the problems and desires of that community. So they can go out and say, hey, listen, these guys are putting this part in their Jeeps, they need an adapter. Well, hey, listen, I have that Jeep, let's make an adapter for that part. And they can go out and torture test it in the field, see where it breaks, et cetera, and make the best possible product they can. So in other words, they're constantly innovating in a space that they know extremely well, and it's turned out to be a very, very successful business for them. If they were a pair of guys who said, hey, do you know what, that's a attractive looking market, I don't know if they would have had the same level of success in there, because they don't have that passion and knowledge in that space that they can bring to it since they are so involved in it. The next thing that I think is absolutely critical when it comes to developing a product-based business for sale is choosing something that you can compete in and identifying a niche or a lane that you can fit in inside it. For this example, guys, let's look at Workholding. I could tell you probably 10 companies off the top of my head that are fantastic companies that make vices or work holding for CNC machines. You know, I use CNC machines every day, very familiar with that space. I could tell you a ton that I would recommend off the top of my head. That said, when I think of somebody who's doing something very exciting and innovative in this space, I would say Jay Pearson from Pearson Workholding. A lot of you guys probably recognize that name, and it's very interesting to me, his case study and how he came up with this. So Jay Pearson from Pearson Workholding, I've had the chance to meet him. We actually have some stuff coming out with him in the future. Fantastic guy, very innovative, lean manufacturing, forward thinker. But one thing he did is, you know, he's a CNC machinist and all that. He identified a space where Workholding needed some love and needed some attention. And that was predominantly, at least from my perception of it, vacuum Workholding. He knew from his experience that, you know, vacuum plates, they existed, they were available, but for holding really thin parts or nesting a lot of parts on a vacuum plate, there wasn't anything that really suited his needs or was up to the level of his expectations. So he made it his mission to go out and make the most versatile and accessible vacuum work holding system that's out there, you know, from the fact that it's made in the US, from the fact that it has very, very tight tolerances, from the fact that it uses your own airline on your machine to generate the vacuum force. You know, you don't need a vacuum pump. All these little things that were super important that went into making this a very, very innovative product were important because it filled a niche and a lane that wasn't being addressed. If he had gone out and said, hey, do you know what? I want to make a work holding company and I'm going to compete with every vice manufacturer out there. You know what? I think he still would have been successful because of his, you know, the way he operates and the way he thinks about, you know, making a very, very high-end product. But I don't know if he would have had the success that he's had. And, you know, now he's branching off into rotary vices and branching off into modular work holding. But really taking the time to identify a lane where he could make a difference and make a name for himself, in my opinion, was a brilliant move. So it's about going and finding something that you can compete in that maybe isn't, you know, it can be a crowded market, that's fine. You need to be able to identify what makes you different and what your lane is in it. I mean, think of CNC knife makers. There's a fantastic community out there, especially on Instagram, of CNC knife makers. There are only a few guys out there who make the top of the top knives that sell for big money. They're not competing with every single knife maker out there because they have identified a lane that, hey, there's a space that if we manufacture the best of the best knives with the best materials, the most exacting tolerances, the smoothest bearings, they're not competing with everybody under the sun. They're competing with essentially themselves. They're competing to make the best product they can possibly make. And that is a lane. But if that is going to be your lane, you need to identify, we're not making, run-of-the-mill knives. We are making the best of the best. Thirdly and lastly, guys, the most important, I guess everything in this stock is the most important. But one of the other important things is scalability. I know when we think scalability and we think about scaling up a product for manufacture, a lot of us think of, how can a factory churn out 5,000 of these parts in a day? And that's not necessarily what we're talking about. Think of a really high-end artist. If an artist in their career produces one painting that they sell for $1 million, that's a great accomplishment, but that's probably not really a career. It's not a business. It's not scalable. That's a one-off thing. But if they manage to paint, one painting every 2 years that sells for $1 million, or one painting a year that sells for $100,000, now it's scalable. Now it's a business. Now it has repeat orders, essentially. So when you're thinking scalability, you're thinking about how it can scale not only on the production side, but on the demand side. If you're someone who manufactures a part, and you're the only guy at your shop who knows how to make it, and you can only run it on one machine and it sells for $100, and you can make one a day, you can make $36,500 a year. That's it. That product is not scalable. But if you can teach other guys to do it, and now you get a couple more machines, and then you start, getting contracts going, and then you can make 10 a day and 20 a day, now all of a sudden that's a business. Now that business is making $1,000, $2,000, $10,000 a day, whatever it may be. That's the scalability of it. On the inverse of that is the demand side. You can make the best machine parts in the world that sell for a lot of money, but if there's only 5 of those machines that those parts go on in the world, your business is not scalable. The market is not there. If you make super high-end dice for Dungeons and Dragons players that sell for $10,000 each, but there's only 5 people in the world willing to pay that, you don't really have a business. You have a $50,000 job. It's being able to identify that not only can you make this part in a quantity that makes sense, or make this product in a quantity that makes sense, you need to make sure that there is actually demand for it and an available market for it that makes sense. If I made parts for Bugattis, I might be able to sell them for a lot of money, but there's not a lot of Bugattis out there. There's a lot of Hondas out there. Might make a little bit more sense. It's identifying not only is the market there, but can you scale up to meet that market need? And if you scale up, is the market need also going to be there to handle it? In any case, guys, I hope this has been helpful. I would like to know in the comments below, what are some of your top tips for people who are looking to develop a product for sale? Maybe you guys have done this, maybe you know someone who has. I think it's something that a lot of people are interested in just based on the forum posts. Feels like every day someone's coming on and saying, hey, can I sell this? Hey, I want to make these parts. Have you guys done this? So there's a lot of interest in this. So any information we can share with each other on this, I feel is going to be helpful. As always, guys, make sure you like, subscribe, and turn on notifications below to make sure you never miss a video. Thank you very much for watching, guys. You take care.